cooking is my life. Whenever I work with young chefs, I really try and get them to understand that, it's hard on your body, on your mind. But I always tell them just hang on in there, because the reward will come, the passion will grow.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. As we've discussed previously on Deep in the Weeds, one of the attractions for a career in hospitality is the ability to travel the world and ply your craft in different restaurants, cuisines and cultures. It not only enriches one's professional skills, but opens their minds to amazing experiences too. How important is travel for those carving out careers in hospitality? Stefano Marano is the head chef of soon-to-be-opened Foote in the Rocks, Sydney. Stefano, how are you?
Good, Huck. How are you?
I'm good. You've done what we've all been dreaming about for the last couple of years and gone travelling around the world. What's it been like at this time to go travelling?
It's definitely been unexpected and challenging, and it's kind of the craziest time to be traveling and moving around the world. I was quite surprised at times that I was able to pull off some of the trips and the adventures. But it was an amazing feeling. I had decided to leave the Apollo and take a break and understand and figure out what I was going to do next. The decision of traveling overseas came really sudden. It was really last minute. I decided, I applied for what at the time was a travel exemption, put all my stuff together, bought a ticket and left within a week. It was like the quickest I've ever left the country. And it just seemed a little bit surreal. And even as I was going through the travel, seeing my family, catching up with people, and eventually lining up, a great experience in Copenhagen, Denmark, it just seemed a little bit too good to be true. But for some reason, everything just kind of fell into place perfectly, and just it felt really good to be able to just, kind of leave and kind of like everything will follow kind of feeling. It was, amazing. I'm so glad it happened and went that way.
Take us on the journey that you went on. What countries did you go to and what did you experience?
So the plan was for me to originally go home to Italy for an extended holiday, see my family. Everyone has had a pretty tough couple of years, and I hadn't seen them in nearly 3. So for me, it was mostly about going home, spending time with the family, travel around, see the people I love, eat the food that I love, and just kind of do that, come back to Australia re-energized, take on a new challenge. And then throughout my travels in Italy, I was looking at Australia and I was following what was happening here quite closely, and kind of saw that there wasn't too much moving in terms of hospitality. There was still lockdowns in place and restrictions. And so I kind of told myself that there wasn't much point in coming back right away or rushing anyway, because I'm going to say I was having a pretty good time in Europe, and it was the middle of summertime, and that's hard to beat. But also just looking at what I was going to do next, I decided to really put a bit of thought into spending a bit of time in Copenhagen. It's somewhere that I've been wanting to go to for a long time, and I kind of told myself it's either now or never again. So I just got in touch with some people, and everyone was like, in terms of looking for a job and talking to people about possibilities of, doing work experience or properly working in specific places. Everyone was super friendly and accommodating and understanding and happy to take me on board for a short period of time. And so again, this was another decision that I kind of took within a couple of days, convinced my girlfriend to move up there for a few months, and we just packed everything from Italy and moved from really nice warm weather to some of the coldest countries on the planet. Yeah, it's been amazing. I had the fortune and the honor of working with people like Rosio Sanchez and also with the guys at Huck Bakery. Everyone was super nice, I've got to say, and helpful, and it really helped the process. When you do something that could be logistically difficult and challenging at times, but you find on the other side people that are willing to help and make that journey a little bit smoother and easier. It just it really made a difference, I have to say. It was a beautiful experience. It's exactly what I needed to kind of reset, do something different, and kind of look at what I'm going to do next. So that's been amazing. Yes.
Given the experiences that you had overseas in that period of time, what was it like coming back into Australia and how the pandemic is sort of affecting the hospitality industry here?
I was pumped to come back. And, I miss Australia. I always miss it when I'm overseas. This time, obviously, there was a whole level of distractions that an interest in Europe for me that made me not necessarily want to rush back to Australia, but towards the end, I did miss it. I did miss the country itself. I miss my life here. I really wanted to come back and also kind of get some of those ideas and things that I saw throughout the travels and, kind of elaborate them and work on those things, whether it was going to be, just for my own gain or towards the next project. And so I was definitely, I was very happy to come back. I think, being away for 7-8 months was a good break. It had a purpose. And the main thing, I think it had a start and an end, which was really good, to know that that journey had a specific time frame. And then after that, I was going to come back to my life. I think it was really important, but very happy to be back. I think I've obviously, since I've left, it hasn't been that long, but it feels like the hospitality industry has had a little shift. There's a huge issue with the staffing at the moment. I talk to people regularly while I was overseas, colleagues, ex-colleagues, people that restaurateurs or chefs or in the hospitality industry anyway. And the whole time I was away, I feel like it was one of the constant conversations. It was how bad the staff levels were at the moment and how tough it is and it was to find staff. I think it's probably and hopefully getting a little bit better. I think we're maybe turned a little corner and that part of hospitality, that aspect is going to improve in the coming months. I, to be honest, really hope so because we're going to need a lot of stuff for the new place. So I'm kind of crossing all my fingers for this. But look, I mean, it's been a crazy couple of years and we've just got to take it as what it is. Unfortunately, we need to understand that it's difficult and somehow work around the problem. There's not a whole lot that we can do other than that, I think.
I want to talk about what you're going to do at the Swill House with the Swill House Group a little bit later, but take us back to when you were young. Where are you from in Italy, and tell us about the food in your family when you were young?
I'm originally from Naples, which is south of Italy. It's about 200 kilometers south of Rome. I guess a lot of people know the surroundings, such as the Amalfi Coast or Capri, more than Naples itself. Naples is a beautiful city with a lot of history, and with a lot of history also comes a lot of good, diverse food. I guess there's been over the years influence from different cultures, which brought to Naples a huge range of different food and cuisine. I guess I grew up in a fairly traditional family. My grandma was and still is an amazing cook, one of the best ones I know. She would be the person that would get up 6 a.m. and start rolling the fresh pasta, and make all the sauces for the Sunday lunch. And I think it's definitely one of the things that have pushed me to love food and engage with food in the early years. I think not a lot of people are lucky enough to experience that, waking up to the beautiful smell of Sunny cooking away on the stove like 6, 7 in the morning, and the noises of the little tools that grandma is using in the background, trying not to wake anyone up, and that would be my breakfast, like waking up and going past the kitchen, just like dipping warm bread in a beautiful sauce. It was what would be my first breakfast before I head back to bed, and then wake up hours later to the proper lunch. I think obviously the surroundings and what you grow with shape you immensely, and even Naples as a city, and the food scene is amazing because good food is so accessible. The produce there is amazing. I think one of the things that I miss the most is some of the amazing cheese, some of the amazing vegetables, the beautiful tomatoes that don't need anything on them other than a bit of olive oil. Those are the things that I really crave. Those are the things that I really miss and really make my mouth water every time I think about it. I guess the food culture is different everywhere you go. And Australia has a very different variety of cuisines. The huge Asian influence that we have in Australia, it's amazing. It's something that you don't find in Europe. And I guess, by the same token, when I go back to Italy, especially, or Europe in general, especially for an extended period of time, one of the things that I do miss, it's a beautiful bowl of noodles, it's a beautiful dumpling, it's those kind of things. It's like the opposite side of the spectrum kind of thing.
You started your career early on at about 15. When those first couple of years, do you have any stories or experiences that sort of helped sort of carve a path for you in the early days?
Yes, I think there's been a bunch of experiences there. Some of them have definitely pushed me towards chefing and hospitality and the food, and some of them, could have been at times a little bit frightening and could have pushed me in the opposite direction. I studied cooking school for 5 years, started at the age of 13. I think it's a really tough decision to make when you're that age, to pick a job, a school that could possibly shape the rest of your life. Like, I think at the age of 13, you don't really know which way is up. You don't know exactly what you want to be doing, But cooking turned out to be the right decision. And, the first years are always tough. Europe is not the easiest part of the world to start chefing in. Some of the kitchens are quite tough. A lot of the mentality can be quite old school. And, in saying that, it's also part of the journey. It's also going to build your personality, your set of skills. My first few jobs were quite casual. I was still at school, so I would only work over the weekend. So I'll do my Monday to Friday school. Saturday, Sunday, I would work in a little restaurant or a pizzeria, or a little pub kind of thing, just to gain a bit of confidence with, just food, possibly just improve my skills, use a knife properly. But I don't think I had my real proper confrontation with food and, restaurants of a certain level till I moved to England a few years later. I decided at the age of 18, finished school, that I just needed something else, that it wasn't Italy. I just needed somewhere where food and cooking was seen as a proper career, rather than, just doing it because you don't have anything else to do or you couldn't find any other job, which was, I think, the mentality quite a bit in Italy at the time. And I've also always wanted to travel. I've always wanted to travel the world and move around as much as possible and take in as much as possible. I think the first restaurant I worked at in England was a little Italian fine dining, a beautiful small restaurant on a river, where the food was really good. It was in between traditional and modern, and it was the first time where I came across a bunch of different personalities in the kitchen, some crazy, passionate people, some other just crazy people. There was a really good blend of, just different varieties. There was, it was really interesting, and everyone was there for the food. Everyone was doing it because that's what they loved. That was their passion. And I have to say, it's been, when I think about it, it's probably been one of the most constructive experiences in my early cooking days. We had, amazing times. We also had a lot of problems. The chef at the time was this Italian chef that came back from he had a really fine dining background. He also was originally Vietnamese, and he brought a really interesting mix of ideas into the restaurant. Problem was, he was also, a bit of a hothead, and he ended up having, to leave eventually. And other than him leading the kitchen, there was us, a bunch of young kids that were just happy, to come in, cook a section, and learn as much as possible. And all of a sudden, a year in the making, he had to kind of leave and walked out from one day to the other, and we were left to run this restaurant that was a busy, high volume restaurant, considering that the kitchen team was quite small, and everyone just had to kind of pull together and trying to hold this business together and make sure the kitchen didn't fall apart, and do everything that you've never done before, because, going from leaving cooking school and cooking a section for a year in a busy restaurant to having to part run it with other chefs that are at your level was definitely something. So it was a great experience. There was definitely times where we didn't know at all what we were doing, but the food we knew how to cook, the sections we knew how to run. So it was definitely tough and challenging, and there was definitely people that, had a little bit more experience. They could take charges a little bit more, but it was great. It was good to be thrown into something like that. And just, you swim or you sink, basically. And I think we did pretty well.
How did you end up making the move to Australia?
One of my last jobs in England was a fine dining French restaurant. And the head chef at the time, this guy called Russell, he had lived and worked in Australia for years. He was actually bank back in the days when, in Sydney was a institution a few years back, and he used to tell me stories about Australia and how much he loved it, how much he wanted to go back, but he couldn't because overstayed on his original visas, kind of got kicked out of the country, and it was like his biggest regret today. But one day I decided that, 3 years in England had been enough for me for the time being. I'd, met some amazing people, cooked in some really cool places, learned the language, and I was ready for something else. So on the back of his stories, I decided to look into it and made the move in 2008. So yeah, it's been amazing, and it's strange. Again, my idea was to move to Australia. I came originally on a working holiday visa. The idea was to be here for 12 months and possibly go back to England. But then things kind of changed quite quickly. I was offered, a good job and sponsorship. The first restaurant I worked at, and I decided to stay. And next thing you know, the 12 months turned into 13, 14 years. And, now this is the place that I call home. It's pretty crazy.
Well, it's a long period of time to spend in a country, and you've become a real part of the fabric of dining in Sydney. What's been some of the key restaurants and people that you've worked with in your time in Sydney?
So my first job was at a little restaurant that doesn't exist anymore now on Crocker Bay Wharf, also called Darling Harbour. The restaurant was Coast Restaurant, and the head chef was Jonathan Barthelmess at the time. When I walked into that kitchen, we were the only fine dining restaurant in the area. The food was really good. It wasn't pretentious. It was, quite simple but refined. And Jonathan just had a really good approach to Mediterranean food and Italian food. Having a Greek background himself, I think definitely helped. And I also think it's just the kind of food he loves, mainly. I thought it would have been, to be honest, a difficult transition coming from the other side of the world and coming in contact with such a different culture where, things are so different coming from like the old continent. Australia is behaves very differently. So I thought there would have been a bit of a almost cultural clash in that sense for me. But it wasn't the case at all. I walked in that kitchen. I got pretty comfortable pretty quickly. And it was a great starting point for me. And I think the fact that I stuck with Jonathan for a decade or so after that, it really proved the fact that I think from day one, we had a great thing going. We had a great energy. And through him, I was able to then go and open venues such as Manly Pavilion and the Apollo restaurant later in the years. So he is definitely being, he's being a mentor, and everything that we've done together has been an amazing experience, an amazing learning curve. And I'm really thankful to him and to the fact that that was one of the restaurants that I worked in as my first experience in this country.
You become a real fabric of the Apollo and became head chef, rising the ranks. What was it like cooking that sort of modern interpretation of Greek cuisine?
I think it was, it came quite natural to me, I think. I had been working in close contact with Jonathan for long enough to know what he was thinking, when we talk about a dish, when we talk about a produce. We know, we've done things that were a little bit more on the fine dining side in the previous two restaurants. Apollo was and is on the high end of casual dining. So I guess it was hard to kind of translate that and put onto the customers as, it is casual dining, but it's done in a certain way. I think the challenge was also opening Apollo in a part of the city, which is, Potts Point, but really 10 years ago when Apollo opened was just an extension of King's Cross. And not a lot of people were thinking about opening restaurants there. I feel like it was a bit of a gamble. We were lucky to build a name for ourselves pretty quickly, and everything just kind of happened naturally. The food part was obviously a combination of me and Jonathan working quite closely and evolving a little bit around the clientele and the circumstances. But we've always had a similar outlook on food and philosophy. We both care about really good produce. We both believe in not have to overdo and overchange things too much. If you, when it comes to cooking, really hold those natural flavors, really maintain what the produce should taste like. And so, we just decided to definitely move a little bit away from what was considered traditional, because the Apollo doesn't necessarily runs on the back of those traditional recipes, but the flavors are the ones of traditional Greece. The dishes themselves might not sound or might not seem like they are, but all the flavors are there. I think that was kind of like our baseline. It was the really good produce, really good flavors, and just go from there.
Do you have any dishes that stand out from your time there that sort of epitomise that approach?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the Apollo, it's so well known for, the tara masalata, the saganaki cheese, the braised lamb shoulder. If you take those three dishes and kind of examine them a little bit, they're really simple, straightforward dishes, but they're all about balance. The tara masalata that we make at the Apollo is one of the best ones I've ever eaten, because the produce are really good and because we found that balance with, the acidity, the onions, the cola. And then obviously there was the challenge on how we're going to serve it, because, there's times where something like that doesn't look super appealing. So putting into little glass yogurt jars and putting a lid over them just kind of turned the thing to be a little bit more interesting for customers. The same thing with the saganaki cheese. It's like, if you think about it, it's pan-fried cheese, but the cheese needs to be right. It needs to be ripened enough. It needs to be cooked in a certain way. There needs to be the right level of lemon juice. There needs to be enough honey, but not too much to, then make it sweet. There needs to be enough oregano. I think that really reflects the way we wanted to cook. It was also intuition. It was also training people to understand that things are not schematic. You cook with your heart. You cook with the way you feel. Like not the produce come in and they're more or less the same, but they're not always exactly the same. You need to be able to adjust the way you're cooking accordingly, your seasoning, your cooking time. And that applied to all three of those dishes, because, a piece of lamb can be bigger or smaller. It can be fattier or linear. And the same thing goes for the tara masalata. It's something that is like, it's fish eggs, and, different seasons will give you different flavors and different colors. And I think you got to find the balance yourself. And that was one of the biggest challenges at the Apollo. There's recipes there, and that is your baseline, but you need to be able to use your chefing skills to look at the produce and understand that today it's different from yesterday and tomorrow is going to be different from today.
The Twillass Group has delivered some incredible restaurants over the last decade in Sydney, and you're joining them for a new project that will open later this year. How did that come about for you?
It was a little bit unexpected. I have to say, I was getting myself ready to leave Copenhagen when they approached me. I have known the group for a long time. I've dined and eaten all the venues and restaurants a bunch of times for a bunch of years now, and I think I really like what they do. I think when we first started talking, I didn't have a set plan in place. For me, the next thing was get onto this Copenhagen train and see what I could gain out of that, and then come back with some fresh ideas. But everything we talked about in our original meeting made the project sound really appealing. I had, fun enough, already seen that venue a month and a half before I left Australia, because it was offered to me by someone else originally already. That fell through, and then they took it on board and approached me with the idea and kind of what the project was going to be like. And everything they mentioned, everything we spoke about felt really good and felt like we were exactly on the same page. The timing was perfect. The kind of food they want to do, it's what I know, and it's also exactly what I was at the time geographically, and for me, already knowing the site, what it looks like, what it needs, it was definitely a big way in then eventually coming on board and taking that decision. Yeah.
I know it's still a fair way off until it does open, but do you have plans on or ideas of what you're going to be cooking?
Yeah, look, I've been obsessing about this menu a little bit, I have to say, and I just kind of I'm in bed at night and I just have these ideas in my head. I got to get up and put them down because otherwise I go to sleep and forget. And so I've had a starting menu which we've changed a few times. I went in last week and had a meeting with all the guys, and it looks like we're pretty close to finalizing the menu. We are going to be cooking European food. There's going to be a big section of the menu that's going to be dedicated to open fire cooking. It's something that I've discovered, in the last few years, and that I love doing. I think cooking over fire, whether it's charcoal, wood, a mix of both, it really changes food from the way we know it traditionally. I think it adds a level of flavor and interest that it's so different from cooking it in any other way. I think it's just amazing what it does. So we're definitely gonna have a big focus on that. That's going to be obviously across proteins and vegetables. And we're also going to have a big part of the menu that is going to be, probably the first part of the menu that is going to concentrate on smaller dishes. That's going to be, influenced from all over Europe. The idea is that we can build a menu that would focus more on Central North Europe in the colder months, and then Central South for the warmer months. So it's great because, now we have this flexibility of tacking in to all the different cultures and cuisines, France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Scandinavia, England. It's a big variety to play with, and it's going to be great. I think we've done some really interesting ideas. We don't want anything to be overcomplicated, but we want it to be a beautiful, refined experience. I won't say too much, but the venue is going to look amazing, and it's only early days, but I'm confident. These guys have put up some pretty amazing venues in the past, and all the ideas and thoughts that are going into these and making it sound like it's going to be an incredible venue.
You've had some amazing experiences in your career so far and involved in something really quite exciting with a dynamic group now. What is it that you love about what you do?
It's, I guess, like, it's a little bit, cooking is my life, and it's, it has been a bit of a gamble at times, especially, you know, we were talking about how hard it can be in your early career to grow that passion. And I'm really aware of that. And, you know, whenever I work with young chefs, I really try and get them to understand that there is definitely years and times throughout the first part of your career where you might even be in doubt of what you're doing. You might even reconsider your career, your job, because it is a time really wearing, and it's, you know, it's hard on your body, on your mind. But I always tell them just hang on in there, because the reward will come, the passion will grow. And I love that came to me quite early in the years. And I love that throughout my jobs, I was able to travel the world, move to a place like Australia, meet some incredible people. I love the different personalities in the industry. I love how dynamic this industry is, how flexible it is. You know, I can pack shop tomorrow and go to the other side of the world, and I will find a job. I will meet amazing people. And I think, you know, for me, it's all this flexibility, all the part where you're able to travel and make these connections with other people and come in contact with other cultures. I love traveling to, you know, places like Asia or Southeast Asia and Central Americas, and, you know, places where you can where the food is so diverse and the culture is so different. I think it's been a big learning experience for me. You know, I think it teaches you a great level of people skills, and that reflects a lot in your job. That teaches you how to deal with the different personalities and train in different personalities and cultures. I think, like, even when we opened the Polo Tokyo, one of the biggest challenges was, you know, the cultural clash a little bit. The Apollo, it's a loud, busy restaurant. Japan doesn't necessarily scream that, especially during the day. So adapting and adjusting and understanding how that culture moves and thinks, it was hard, but it was really rewarding, because it taught me a lot. And it really taught me that different people, you know, need different attentions, a different level of training, a different way of being spoken to. So it hasn't just been cooking, it's been, you know, a 360 experience.
Well, it's been amazing hearing just a part of your story, and good luck with the new project. It sounds like it's going to be pretty special for that area in Sydney. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.